Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lynn Kaplan, coming to you from a very sunny Bonita Springs, Florida. It's that time of year to share my observations with you regarding the new 2023 National Mahjong League card and hopefully give you a clear insight to many of the new hands. This year I've decided to put together each hand in hopes that it will help clarify any questions or confusion that you may have. Before we get started, I do want to give recognition to my best friend Lori and her husband Elias, who are assisting me in making this video. Lastly, as I have mentioned in the past, I have received permission from the National Mahjong League in showing the card, since I am using it for instructional purposes only. Therefore, please do not call the Mahjong police on me. This time of year, it always reminds me of the 1978 movie with Alan Alda and Carol Burnett called Same Time Next Year. I'm sure several of you are familiar with it. Just like in the movie that characterizes particular changes, we observe new modifications to the National Mahjong League card. It is the time of year that we celebrate the different variations to the card and also feel a little bit intimidated by the new combinations of the hands. This is my analysis of the 2023 card, which I hope you will find helpful. I will make recommendations at the end of this review that will point you in the right direction as to the steps you can take to better learn the card. Please remember that you can always request a copy of my written notes by emailing me at lynnkaplan38@gmail.com. I will be repeating that again at the end of this video. As we go through this review, it is imperative that you remember that the green and red colorations on the card does not represent that you must use BAMs for the green color and cracks for the red color. It simply designates the number of different suits needed for a particular hand. I mention this because a lot of beginners watch this video, and I just like to reinforce that fact. So, as Jackie Gleason used to say, and away we go. So we're going to start with the 2023 category, which is this year's category. And I have already built the hand, as you can see, just to get us started. I like this hand because it is, first of all, it's any two suits. I have used cracks and BAMs, and our Kong of soaps, because that is the only tile in Mahjong that can be used to represent the 0. So I have a Pung of twos and cracks, we have our 4 soaps, and then we have a second color which designates we need a second suit, and I'm using BAMs, 2s and my 3s in BAMs. This is a Pung Kong hand. It's a nice callable hand due to the fact that it's Pung Kong, and you can use as many jokers as you want. I will be using that word callable throughout my review, so please remember that it means that you can call for any tile to complete and expose a meld, and you can use as many jokers as you want. You could have all 4 jokers for these soaps if need be. You could have 2 jokers here and 1 2 BAM. I want to point out that, again, since there are 2 colors in the hand, it means that it requires 2 different suits. The first Pung of 2s can be in any suit, and the second Pung and Kong of 3s need to match in any second suit. Okay? And just once again, please remember that when the white dragon or soap, I'm going to refer to the white dragon as soap, since that is pretty much the acceptable term used these days. Just remember that when the soap is used as a 0, it does not require you to select dots as another suit. Okay, so that's the very first hand in 2023. Now we'll go to the number 2 hand. And this hand has 3 suits. So let's go ahead and make that hand. First of all, we need 2 flowers. Okay. We need our 2023, and since I had the cracks up there, I'm just going to go ahead and use the 2023. I have the 3 BAMs in a Kong, so what I'm going to do is recognize that my 3rd suit is dots, so I am going to need a Kong of 2 dots. Okay, so there's our 3 suits. We've got cracks, dots, and BAMs, and a pair of flowers. Okay. Now, again, I am going to remind you that since there is a 0 in the 2023 meld, that does not require you to use the suit of dots. Remember, when the soap is used as a 0, it goes with any suit. Even if you look at the top of your Mahjong card, they mention it. Now also remember that in the 2023 configuration, you cannot use a joker because these are considered single tiles. Okay? This is not considered a Kong since they are not 4 identical tiles. Also, you cannot call a tile to complete the 2023 meld unless it is your final Mahjong tile. If someone makes an exposure for the 2023 with or without a joker, immediately call their hand dead. That is not, if someone makes this kind of an exposure, immediately call their hand dead. These are considered single tiles. You do not have 4 identical tiles, okay? So that is the number 2 hand. Let's go to the number 3 hand in 2023, okay? We have 4 flowers. Okay. We have, well, I could have just left that 2023 up there. We can build that quickly. 2023. And then we have to determine, after we make our 2023, we have to determine what the opposite dragons are. In this particular case, our opposite dragons are going to be in the BAM suit, which are the green, and in the red suit, representing our cracks. Okay. Now, let me point out, very important, again, the 2023 does not have to be in dots. Okay? I could very easily have made this in cracks, okay? 2023 in cracks, and then you still have a valid Mahjong because the league states pungs any dragons, okay? So this hand, to tell you the truth, is a little deceiving. And we have verified with the National Mahjong League that this should have stated any 2 dragons, which means that the 2023, this can be in cracks, BAMs, or dots, and then the other 2 pungs of dragons can be your white, your soap, green, or red dragons. They just cannot be in matching sets. Okay? So even if your 2023 is in dots, you can still select the soap as one of your pungs or dragons. So in other words, we still could have had 3 white dragons here, 3 soaps here, and 3 greens here, still would have been a valid mahjong. So just remember, it's any 2 pungs of dragons. Okay? I also want to point out that this is a great example of why we try not to pass dragons during the Charleston. You'll notice on this year's card that dragons appear in the majority of the sections on the card. I will remind you once again that for the 2023, you cannot call for an exposure on that particular meld unless it is your final mahjong tile. So in other words, let's say you have everything in this hand and the only thing you're waiting for is a 3 crack. Someone discards a 3 crack, you can call mahjong. Pick up the tile, put it on your rack, expose the rest of your hand. And everyone at that point should verify that you have a valid mahjong. So keep that in mind. This is the first hand on the 2023 card that requires a Kong of flowers. All right? There are actually a total of 10 hands that require 4 flowers on this year's card. I mention this because if someone exposes a Kong of flowers, with a second exposure, you may be in a position to determine the hand that your opponent is playing. Just as a special note, if someone exposes a Kong of flowers and a pung of dragons, this is the only hand on this year's card that they can be playing, okay? So I'm gonna say that again. If someone on the 3rd hand down in 2023 exposes a Kong of flowers and a pung of any dragon, this is the only hand that they can be playing. So you want to try to figure out by the tiles that have been discarded what suit they are playing the 2023 in. So in other words, let's say they have exposed the 4 flowers and they have exposed the green dragons. You want to look at the discarded tiles to see what 2s and 3s have been discarded to try to narrow down what suit they're playing this 2023 in. And needless to say, by determining the suit, it will help you play defensively and prevent you from throwing an opponent's mahjong tile. Okay. So again, in this hand, as many jokers as you want here in that Kong, and as many jokers as you want in these pungs of dragons. No jokers here under any circumstances. Those are considered single tiles. Okay, let me put these back and we will move to the next hand. We are now at the 4th hand, which is the last hand in 2023. And this is a concealed hand. Okay, and we're going to talk more about concealed hands in just a little bit. But let's go ahead and make this hand. Okay, so again, we have a pair of 2s. We have a pung, which is 3 white dragons. And look, we have our news back again. We have 2 colors in that hand. That means that we have to have 2 suits. So here we go. I have used BAMs and I have used cracks for this hand. As many jokers here as I want, as many jokers there as I want. Okay? So this is an interesting pair pung combination on a concealed hand. I would certainly try to have a good majority of my pairs here, and my single tiles, my news, north, east, west, and south, before attempting to make this hand. I know that there are a lot of us that were hoping for the old news hand to make a comeback, but this is certainly an interesting variation. Remember that the pair of twos can be in any suit, dots, cracks, or bams. Okay? They do not have to be in dots. When the soap acts as a 0, it's not associated with any designated suit, okay? So just remember that the pung of twos and pair of threes must be in the same matching suit, but an opposite suit of the pair of twos at the start of the hand is required, okay? And that's it for the 2023 category. So you have 4 choices this year in the 2023 category. Let's move on to our 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate, I always say. And the 2, 4, 6 category is also known as the evens category. So obviously all of these hands are going to be comprised of 2, 4, 6s, and 8s. So that first hand is 1 color. 1 color equals 1 suit. Okay, so let's get our flowers up there first. And since the BAMs are right in front of me, I'm just going to go ahead and use them. I think maybe I'll start using jokers so you all can see where you can use jokers. And of course, you know that you can use jokers in any pung, which is a set of 3 light tiles, a kong, which is a set of 4 light tiles, and a quint, which is a set of 5 light tiles. In this particular hand, we have our kong of flowers, kong of 2s, kong of 8s, and a 4 and a 6 single tiles. Okay. So please, please remember that you can only call the 4 and the 6 if it is for your final mahjong tile. Okay? So in other words, let's say you're playing and all you need is the 6 bam, and someone drops the 6 bam, call for mahjong, pick up the tile, put it on your rack, expose the rest of your tiles, and congratulations, you have a mahjong. Okay? So the one other thing that I want you to be mindful of in this hand that's very, very important is, let's say you're playing it, you need to be mindful that if another player exposes a kong of 4s and a kong of 6s, and in this example, if they're in bams, and you know you need those single tiles because you cannot use a joker, you would need to find a backup hand, okay? So you know that you would not be able to make this hand if someone else is playing and they expose all 4 bams or all 4 6 bams. You know that you will have to change hands because you cannot use a joker as a single tile. Okay. So again, in this hand, as many jokers as you want for your flowers, as many jokers as you want for that kong, as many jokers as you want for those 8s. No jokers for single tiles. If someone declares a mahjong and they have that for this hand, what are you going to do? Declare their hand dead, okay? And especially when we're playing on a new card, the last thing you want to do is immediately throw your tiles in. You want to verify the hand to make sure that it is in fact a valid mahjong, okay? All right, hand number 2 in 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's go ahead and put it together. Again, I'm only using the bams because they're right in front of me. I'm going to remind my beginners again that the green color has absolutely no designation other than the fact that it has to be 1 suit. And then the other colors designate the 2nd and 3rd suits. So please, please, please remember that. I have a pet peeve with the National Mahjong League. I wish so much that they had used any other suit or any other colors than green and red, because it does get a little bit confusing, because right away we think, oh, we see the color green and we go, oh, that must mean I have to use bands, or they see the color red and they think, oh, I must have to use cracks. No, the only thing that it designates is how many suits you need, okay? So, oh, hold on a second. This has to be my 4 cracks. So, what I'm going to do when I put together these hands, that if the league allows you to have a variation, rather than just copy the hand, I'm going to show you how else you can make the hand. So, for instance, in this number 2 hand under 2, 4, 6, 8, if you read the verbiage, it says any 3 suits, kongs, any like even numbers. So these kongs could have been matching in 2s, just like they show in the example on the card, or 4s, or 6s, or 8s, okay? So here's a variation of that particular hand. Now, this is a 30-cent hand because of the pairs and the single tiles required. Again, I will mention the kongs can be in any even number in opposite suits, but they must match in the same even number. So, again, you do not want to try to make this hand if after the Charleston you don't have a lot of these pairs and these single tiles up front. Just remember, you can never call for an exposure on a single or a pair. The only time that you can call it is if it is your 14th tile and you can declare Mahjong. Another thing I want to mention about this hand, especially to my beginner players, is that you cannot have, like, say for instance, you cannot have, let's say, 2s and 4s for kongs, okay? The kongs have to match in the same number. So this is another thing that you want to watch out for when someone declares Mahjong on this hand. The kongs have to match in the same number. But they can be 2, 4, 6s, and 8s, okay? No jokers, no jokers, no jokers. As many jokers as you want. Okay, let's go down to the 3rd hand in 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, again, we're looking at a hand that has pung kong, and I will, since I have mostly bands up, I will go ahead and complete the hand using BAMs. So we've got another 2 here. We've got a Kong of 4s. We have a Pung of 6s and a Pung of 8s. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8 in one suit. Or you can make this hand in 2 suits. All right? So these 6s and these 8s could be in dots if we wanted them to be in dots. I'll go ahead and show you that example. 2, 4, 6, 8 in dots. Okay? These 2s and 4s could be in reds. All right? The important thing is any 2 different suits. Okay? For that, I call it my 3B hand. You'll notice that if you request my copy of notes. So in the 3B hand, the second hand to the right in the column 3, you will see that. So in this particular hand, again, I'm going to mention easy pung kong, everything is callable. You can make it in 1 or 2 different suits. Remember again that you can use as many jokers as you want in a pung, kong, or quint hand. Okay. Let's go down now to, we are on number 4 in the 2, 4, 6, 8 category. I will just go ahead and leave those 2s and 4s up. I just need to remove 1, 2. We will do our 4, 6 in dots, since I already have some up there. And let me just find another 4 dot, and we'll just add a joker here to our 6s. And then what do we need to do? We need to determine what our third suit is. We've got BAMs, we've got dots. Our third suit is cracks. So there we go. Okay. 2, 4, 4, 6, 8 in 3 different suits. So this is a 30-cent hand due to the 3 pairs, 1, 2, 3. And we all know that we cannot use jokers with those pairs. And we also recognize how difficult it is to make these pairs sometimes. So you want to try to snag those pairs up front as quickly as possible. Hopefully, by the end of the Charleston, you'll have the majority of them. Okay? So that is the number 4 hand. 2, 4, 4, 6, 8. 14 tiles. We all know that it takes 14 tiles to make a mahjong, right? Okay, let's go to the 5th hand. Ooh, our dragons are making an appearance now. So I think I'm going to switch up the 2s and the 8s from BAMs because, again, I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that because it's green, it has to be BAMs. Just take a make-believe eraser and erase that from your head, okay? When I teach mahjong, that's always what I say to my class, that you just want to erase that from your mind. Okay, so we've got 2 pungs to start this hand, and I've decided that I am going to use cracks for my pungs of 2s and 8s. So in this hand, it says any 3 suits. And how do we know it's any 3 suits? Again, because it's 3 colors. So I have to know what my opposite dragons are. Well, we know that reds go with cracks, so we know we're not going to need reds. So what are the other dragons? We need our green dragon, and we need our soaps, okay? I'm gonna start using jokers more so that it reinforces to you that you can use jokers in any pung, kong, or quint. So in this hand, we've got pung, pung, kong, kong. This is the 5th hand down. And it's a nice, easy combination, the pung, pung, kong, kong. It's a nice callable hand. You can use jokers in every meld. Okay? And here is yet another hand as to why we try not to pass dragons in the Charleston. Please try to remember that you may not need them, but one of your opponents may need them for their hand. So in the Charleston, if you have the choice between, let's say, a dragon and a 8 dot, for instance, you would pass the 8 dot over a dragon. Okay, moving right along. We are now in the number 6 hand in the 2, 4, 6, 8 category. And I'm going to leave those cracks up there. And I am going to make this hand in cracks. 1 color equals 1 suit, okay? Everyone should, that's kind of Mahjong 101 as far as 1 color equals 1 suit. 2 colors equals 2 suits, 3 colors equals 3 suits. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That tells me right away, what am I missing? My flowers. Okay. Sometimes I like to count just to make sure I've completed the hand properly. 14 tiles makes your mahjong. So in this particular hand, it's 1 suit with a pair of flowers and a pair of dragons. This is why it is imperative that you know your matching dragons. Please, if you forget, turn to the back of your card, and there it is, right in bold, matching dragons. Cracks, reds, bams, greens, dots with whites or soaps. Okay? And I recommend to beginners to highlight that area on the card. All right? Where can we use jokers in this hand? Well, this pung and this pung only. Again, that's why this is a 30-cent hand. It's concealed, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs. My personal opinion is this hand should have been worth more than 30 cents, maybe 35. But what's a nickel? Okay, jokers here, as many as you want. Okay, we just finished the 2, 4, 6, 8 category. The next category is any like numbers, and this is a popular category for beginners because during the Charleston, oftentimes like numbers will pop out at you. So this year we only have 2 choices of any like numbers. And please remember the key is like, okay? Any like number. So I'm going to make this hand in 6s. Because if I make it in 1s, all I'm doing is copying the card, and in my opinion, you won't really have as good as an idea of the hand unless you see it in a different variation, okay? So we're going to have, we'll go ahead and use a joker here for that pair, and aha, flower power, another hand with a Kong of flowers. Okay. So let's talk about this hand. It's 3 different suits because we've got 3 different colors, okay? Please remember that the number has to be the same, okay? You can't have 6s and 7s or 1s and 2s. It has to be the same. That's why sometimes I'll have beginners highlight like numbers or even write in same, S-A-M-E, to remind them, okay? Now, needless to say, having this pair up front should make this a fairly easy hand because you can use jokers galore in any of these 3 Kongs. Okay. Now, the next hand is very interesting. It requires single dragons. I'm trying to remember. I've been playing mahjong now, oh gosh, let's see, my son is 32, well over 25 years. And I can't recall a mahjong card having single dragons. So, again, any like number. So since they're close here, I'm going to make it easy on myself. And I am going to just use the 2s. Now, what 2s am I missing at this point? I'm missing my 2. I've got my dots, I've got my bams. What do I need? What is my 3rd suit? The cracks. I'm going to assume that everybody said cracks, so you're right. Now, once we have this, we have to determine what our matching dragons are. They're single tile dragons. We need 1 soap. We need 1 green dragon. I see my red over here, so I'll grab that. And I see my green here. Okay? So what's important about this hand? Well, a few things, right? We know it's 3 suits again because it's 3 colors. And you only need one of each of the matching dragons to go with each pung of any like number. Right? So again, you can't have 2s and you can't have 4s. They all have to match in the same number. This hand represents another reason why you want to hold on to dragons during the Charleston. Okay? Please be very careful when playing this hand, since it is a 30-cent concealed hand. You can only call for a tile if it is your final mahjong tile. So let's say you're playing this hand. You cannot call for any of these pungs to make an exposure. The only thing you can call for is if it's your 14th tile and it completes your mahjong. So let's say you're sitting and you're waiting. All you need for this hand is the green dragon. And someone discards green, mahjong, you call mahjong, you pick up the tile, put it on your rack, display your hand, and mazel tov again, I'm making a nice mahjong concealed hand. Okay? What I'm concerned about with this hand this year is that people are going to be declared dead because they call for these pungs, and then when they declare their mahjong, they realize that they've been playing a concealed hand. So again, check the hands carefully after someone declares a mahjong. Well, look what's back for you math fans and addition fans. The league has returned the addition hands. So, what do we have? The first thing that I'm going to state on these 4 addition hands is that it has to be those numbers. So they've got 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, 3 + 3 = 6, 4 + 4 = 8. You cannot change those numbers, okay? It has to be those numbers. So I'm just going to make one of these hands, and I already have some 2s up here, okay? Now 3 colors equals 3 suits, okay? So we'll use 2s here, and then I know that I need to have 1s in the other 2 suits, okay? First, let's put our flowers up there. 1s I've got in cracks. I'm going to need 1s in dots. That's my second suit. Okay. Equals 2. 2 flowers. 1 + 1 = 2. Kong. Let me put my ruler underneath so you can follow me. Kong, Kong, Kong. Kong, Kong, Kong. All right? So that's an example of that first addition hand. Okay? Any 3 suits. Right? 2 + 2 = 4, or 3 + 3 = 6, 4 + 4 = 8. I know I'm being a broken record. Please remember that it has to be those numbers. I'm afraid that some people are just going to see addition hands and just make up whatever they want. But it has to be those numbers. Again, as many jokers as I want in these Kongs. Of course, no jokers with those pairs. Okay. Let's move on to the mighty Quints. I love playing Quints, tell you the truth. Now, of course, I don't look up in the Quint category unless I open with at least 2 or 3 jokers. But guess what? This year, we have a hand that only requires 1 joker. So let's go ahead and make this hand. Again, it's any like number. Like meaning the same, okay? So I'm just going to throw a couple jokers in there, and then it's any wind. All right, so you can use north, west, south, and east. I like to kind of mix things up when I show examples. So there is an example of the first hand in quints. It requires any same number, I chose 2s, in 2 different suits, cracks and bams, okay? Along with a Kong of any wind. These could have been north, these could have been east, west, or south. All matching, of course. So you'll need at least 2 jokers to make this hand, all right? There's only 4 2 cracks and there's only 4 2 bams. So you'll need to have at least 2 jokers. So in other words, if you were lucky and you got all of the cracks and then you had all of the 2 bams, realistically, you only need 2 jokers to make that first quint hand. Again, as many jokers as you want with that Kong. So quint, Kong, quint. 45-cent hand. Let's go to the next hand. All right. 1 color equals 1 suit. What's important to remember about this hand, read the verbiage. These numbers only, okay? So you can't go switching up these numbers to like go 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. It has to be these numbers, all right? So let me grab some jokers here, and then I need some 5 cracks. And this is the hand that I was saying that you only need 1 joker because there's only 1 quint. Okay? Pair, pung, Kong, quint, in those numbers only. Now, if I'm playing this hand, I want to have at least one of the pairs of 2s to even attempt to make this hand. Now, just kind of as a side note, if you're playing this hand and you happen to pull a 1 crack, I would hold on to that 1 crack because you can always use the first hand in consecutive run as a backup, okay? So just try to keep that in mind. If by chance you pick a one crack, or even during the Charleston you start off with 1 or 2 1 cracks, which would be awesome, if you're having a hard time completing the rest of this hand in the quints, just jump down to that first hand in consecutive run. Okay. Let's go to the number 2 hand. Oh no, we did 2. We're already to the last hand in quints. A 45 center. We need to have 4 flowers. As I think I had mentioned, there are actually 10 hands this year that have a Kong of flowers. And in my written notes, I actually list what those hands are. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So let's finish making this hand. Let's say we're lucky and we've got joker fever. So this hand is Kong, quint, quint. Any 2 consecutive numbers. As you should know by now, the National Mahjong League pretty much uses 1, 2 for their examples of consecutive runs. But again, I want you to see the hand in a different way that you can make it. Okay, I think it's better than me just copying the hand, which you could just very easily do. But I want to show you a different variation as a teaching tool. All right? So any 2 consecutive numbers in the Kong of flowers, you need a minimum of 2 jokers to make this hand. Reason being, there are only 4 4 cracks, and there's only 4 or 5 bams. So you would need to have at least one joker there. And let's see if I can find the other for crack. I think it's MIA. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's see if I can, here we go. Okay, so if you were lucky enough to get all of the natural 4 cracks in this particular example, and lucky enough to get all of the natural 5 bams, again, you would only need 2 jokers to make that Quint hand. 45 center. Well, we're already in the consecutive run category. We're moving right along. The first 2 hands in consecutive run, I don't even think I'm going to take the time to put them together because this is standard on the National Mahjong League card, other than the fact that they do change up the melds. This year, we have the pairs at the end of each run, okay? So really, all I want to say is that it's these numbers only, 1 through 5, or 5 through 9, all right? I know I'm being redundant, but I'm just going to state again, try to have those pairs up front, okay? That's the key to this hand. Other than that, it's 1 suit. Beginners have a tendency to like this type of a consecutive hand because after the Charleston, and when you put your tiles in suit and consecutive order, consecutive hands will pop out at you, okay? So, and you'll even see on the card, these numbers only, okay? All right, let's go to the second hand. We can make this run in 1 suit or any 2 suits. Now, it's when they say any run, that means you can use any 4 consecutive numbers. So realistically, you can start your run anywhere from 1 to 6, 6 being the highest because you would have 6, 7, 8, 9. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll go ahead and make this hand. Again, we have our friendly and easy hand of pung kong, pung kong. Everything is callable. So let's see, I am going to, we'll do 6, and then we'll do 6, 7, and then we're going to do 8, 9. Pung kong, pung kong. That's going to be the 2023 mantra. That's another 8. We need the 9s. Okay, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nice hand. This is going to be a popular hand. You can make it in 1 suit or 2 suits. Okay. Is there anything else that I want to say about that consecutive run hand? Let me just make sure. Again, I will mention you can request a copy of my notes, Lynn Kaplan 38 at gmail.com. And you will have this all in writing to refer to. In the meantime, let's go to the third hand in consecutive runs. I think I'll keep it easy on myself, and we'll leave this 6, 7 up here. Okay, now it's any 1 suit, any 2 consecutive numbers. We have a pair of flowers, and we have matching dragons. So what's our matching dragons to BAMs? Everybody? Green dragons. So we have a Kong of green dragons. Okay. So 4, 8, 12, 13, 14 tiles. Again, as many jokers as you want. I know I keep saying this, but some people seem to have a problem realizing that with a pung, kong, or quint, you can have as many jokers as you want. You could have 4 jokers representing those 4 dragons. Okay. I am going to predict that this is going to be one of the more popular hands this year. It's an old favorite of a lot of us players that have been playing Mahjong for a while. You will need the pair of flowers followed by any 2 consecutive numbers in the same suit, okay, with the Kong of matching dragons. Needless to say, in addition to dragons being popular tiles, so are flowers. If you can prevent passing them during the Charleston, it really is a good move. Sometimes you can't prevent it, I get that. But if you have the choice, try not to pass flowers and dragons. Okay. All right, consecutive run, 4th hand. This is a 30-cent hand. Can anybody tell me why? Yes, you're right. It's because you have a single tile and a pair and then 2 kongs. So let's go ahead and make this hand. We need 1 suit, 1. Now, actually, it says any 5 consecutive numbers. So rather than my just copying the card, let's do this. 5 and a 6, pair of 6s. And then we have a pung of 7s. Okay, so this is kind of like a step ladder, isn't it? We're having ascending numbers, 5 consecutive numbers. 5, 6, 7. What's our next number? 8. We'll go ahead and use 8 cracks, and that's going to be a Kong. What is our last suit? Dots. Very good. I heard you all say dots. And that's how we make this hand as another example. This is a tricky hand, okay, in my opinion. It's probably why it's 30 cents. So again, any 3 suits. I've got bams, cracks, and dots. My first 3 numbers are in 1 color. It just so happens that I chose bams. So 5 is my single, 6s are my pair, my 7s is my pung, and then my next number up is 8 in a second suit. My next number up is 9 in a third suit. Okay, 30-cent hand. I think this one's going to be a little bit challenging. Keep in mind with this hand that the lowest number you can start with is 5, because obviously the highest number tile we have in Mahjong is 9. So if you started with 6, you go 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you go, oops, no such thing as 10. Okay. Next hands. Let's see what we have. We have a nice consecutive run hand that you can make in 1 suit or 3 suits. Okay. Now, the league ran out of room. They could not fit in any 3 consecutive numbers. So you all need to take the time and get your pen and write in here or maybe by the side any 3 consecutive numbers. So I will make this hand in a different example so that you have a better understanding. Let's do 4, 5 in a second suit. What's my third suit? Dots, thank you. So we need 6 dots. 4, 5, 6. Okay. So again, we can make it in 1 suit, or we could make it in 3 suits. And that's the example that I have posted here. 2 flowers, 4, 5, and 6, cracks, bams, and dots. So again, you can start your run anywhere from 1 through 7. You want to write any 3 consecutive numbers down on the card so that you remember that on that hand. Okay, let's go on to hand number 6 in consecutive runs. So nice, easy, pung kong, with any 2 suits. And once again, how do we know any 2 suits? Because we've got 2 colors in the hand. Any 2 consecutive numbers. The example that the league is giving is 1, 2, 1, 2. To give you another example, I've changed up the numbers to 5, 6, 5, 6. Okay? So our 2 consecutive numbers are 5, 6, 5, 6. I think this is going to be a very popular hand this year because everything is callable. Feel free to use as many jokers as you would like. And remember, I think I have said this before, but it's worth repeating, that during the Charleston, you want to set your tiles up by matching suits and in consecutive order with matching dragons at the end. And I always kind of put my flowers over here because, as you'll notice on the card, the majority of hands, the flowers are always on the left-hand side. And it just helps for hands to pop out at you. So always remember that when you set up your tiles in your rack during the Charleston, you want to set them up in consecutive order by individual suits with dragons at the end, and especially in consecutive run, hands will just pop out at you and make it a little bit easier for you to decide what hand to play, especially in the consecutive run category. So this is going to be a popular hand, jokers everywhere, and our friendly pung kong. Let's go to number 7. Okay. 3 colors equals 3 suits. Let's throw our 4 flowers, another one of those 10 hands that has a Kong of flowers. Okay? So it's any 3 consecutive numbers. Frankly, I'm going to leave my 4, 5 up there, make it kind of easy for myself. What is our 3rd number? Our 3rd number is 6. What is our 3rd suit? Dots. Okay? So look at this hand. You've got any 3 consecutive numbers. The league always uses 1, 2, 3, but I am switching it up so that you have a better understanding. I've got 4, 5 in 1 suit, and then my 3rd number is 6. I've got my 6s in the other 2 suits. Okay. Jokers, jokers, jokers. Don't we just love our jokers? Again, remember you can start your run anywhere from 7. So you could have a pair of 7s, pairs of 8s, and then 9s and 9s. That's the example that I have in my written notes, I believe. But I just want to mention that. Needless to say, the most difficult part of this hand are the 2 pairs, so try to have the pairs up front. In other words, during the Charleston, if I'm thinking about playing this hand and, I don't have any 4s, and maybe I only have 1 5, boy, I'd think twice about playing this hand. I want to have at least 1 of each pair because we all know how tricky those pairs are to get and how many of us have our hands gone dead when we have not been able to secure those pairs. So that's why I always just like to reiterate that part. Okay. Last hand in consecutive run. Again, it's our concealed hand. I do recommend for beginners, I mentioned this before, to go ahead and highlight concealed hands. Don't be afraid to play them, but it's just to remind you that you cannot call for an exposure on a concealed hand, okay? So in this particular hand, it's any 4 consecutive numbers with matching dragons. So any 4 consecutive numbers. So how about we start with the number 3 this time? So we've got a pung of 3s. We have a pair of 4s. Then we have to have a pair of 5s. Okay. And then we have to have our 6s with matching dragons. Our matching dragons to cracks. The way I teach how to remember matching dragons on cracks, if you look at the tiles, the majority of the color that you see is red. The red characters that they show on the bottom of your crack tiles. So that's how I teach matching dragons to reds. Matching dragons to BAMs is pretty easy because you think about bamboo and you think it's green. Matching dragons to the soap, I always teach that, you know, the dots look like bubbles. What makes bubbles? Soap. So that's, you know, if that's an easy way for y'all to remember matching dragons. And if not, again, I point you back to the card, the last panel, where it shows matching dragons. So again, this hand in Quint's, it's got a high level of difficulty because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs. Again, I'll just say I think this should be 35-cent hand rather than a 30-cent hand. This is going to be difficult, especially since it is concealed. Okay. Well, we just finished consecutive runs. Where are we now? 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Also known as the odds category. You know, needless to say, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, which are our evens. Now we go to our odd category. I just want to mention that this year we have, I counted them, 14 options of different hands in this category, which is pretty amazing. So you're going to have a lot of choices. If during the Charleston you start collecting a lot of the odd numbers, this is the category you are going to direct your attention to. This first hand in 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, you can make it in 1 or 3 suits, okay? 1 or 3 suits. We're going to make it in 3 suits, okay? So let's start. We need our 1s and 3s in 1 suit. We need our 5s in a 2nd suit. What's our 3rd suit? Dots. So we need to have the 7s and the 9s in the 3rd suit. Okay. I think this is a carryover hand from last year, the more I look at it. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 3 suits. Now, I would be very careful when playing this particular hand to make sure that your numbers are in the accurate suits, meaning that the 1s and the 3s have to be in 1 suit, the 5s in a 2nd suit, and the 7 and 9s in a 3rd suit. You know, if you find you're having a hard time with your pairs or just pulling this together, I would definitely look at other options available in this same category, since those are the numbers that you already have in your rack. And like I said, this year you've got 14 options in this category. Okay. Let's go to the second hand. These hands are one of my personal favorites, and why? Because it's the pung kong combination again. So now, let me just mention, since we just got through with the consecutive run category where we could change our numbers, in the other categories, it has to be these numbers. The only time you can change numbers is if the league tells you you can. And we're going to come to, well, we had one hand. Remember this hand over here in 2, 4, 6, 8, where we were able to change those kongs to any like even number? I will tell you that in this 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 category, these hands are exactly as they appear. You cannot make any changes whatsoever. Very, very important. I have people asking me that quite a bit. So let's just go ahead and make that first hand, the 1, 3, 3, 5, the second hand we're at, okay? We have a pung of 1s, a kong of 3s, a pung of another 3, and a pung of 5s in a second suit, okay? Pung kong, pung kong. Love this hand, all right? Every meld can be called for. You can use as many jokers as you like. Easy peasy, okay? Now, I'm just going to say here that, and this is something that I just like to point out because there's a similar hand on the card. If you look down at the number 5 hand, okay, the first part, you see where that hand is also 1, 3, 3, 5, and then with the opposite dragon in the middle. If I'm playing in this 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, I am definitely going to hold on to dragons during the Charleston, especially the opposite dragon of whatever 2 suits that I'm playing. So in this case, my opposite dragon would be the soap. And when we get to make that hand, matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and make that hand right now because we've already got the most of it up here on the rack. But just as a side note, I want to point out that definitely use the 5th hand down in the same category for a backup with this number 2 hand in 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And I'm going to show you why right now, okay? So we've just completed the first in 1, 3, 3, 5. You can also do it in 5, 7, 7, 9, right? But in the 5th hand down, we've got 1, 3, okay? And then I've got in BAMs 3, 5. I've got cracks and BAMs. Our opposite dragon would be what the dragon is for dots. So that is our white dragon. And there you go. Look at how easy we converted that hand. So I like to point these things out because, you know, as you get more experienced, you want to be able to play between at least like 2 different hands to have a backup just in case, you know, you go dead. For instance, let's say you're playing this hand and all of a sudden you realize that you're not going to be able to get the second 1 crack or a second 5 BAM because you know you can't use jokers. What are you going to do? You're going to switch up to that first hand in the second hand in the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 1, 3, 3, 5. Okay? All right. Let's go to the 3rd hand now in 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. We have any 3 suits with a pair of flowers. Okay? So let's go ahead and build this hand. Pair of flowers. Hey. We'll go ahead and use 1 crack since they seem to be right in front of me. Trying to use the KISS policy of keep it simple, silly, right? Oh, don't need a joker because I found all natural. So 3 suits. So 1, 3. What's my 3rd suit? I'm listening. Dots. So we need to find our 5 dots. also, and this is just a little advice, when you play Mahjong and you make an exposure, do not point your tiles out towards your opponents, especially with jokers. You don't want to make it easy for them, okay? Always, when you make an exposure, make sure it points in your direction. And this is just a very small tip. Put your jokers inside your melds, okay? It's a little bit more trickier to see jokers. It's just a very small strategy point that I like to mention. So there's that hand. You can make it in 1-3-5 or 5-7-9. 3 suits with a pair of flowers. As many jokers, jokers galore in here, okay? I was playing with someone recently that had 7 jokers. And yes, she did make her Mahjong. And no, it wasn't me. Okay, hand number 4. So interesting, right away what points out at me is that it is a 30-cent hand. Right? Let's go ahead and make this. Let's just keep our cracks up there. And we're going to need 5s, and we're going to need 3s. Actually, we need a pair of 3s, so they have to be natural, right? We cannot use jokers with pairs or as singles. Okay, so I'm using cracks. Everybody, what's my matching dragon? Reds. Very good, thank you. So, 30-cent hand, 3 pairs, right? You can do it in either 1-3-5 or 5-7-9. 1 suit, because of those 3 pairs, I would try my best to secure them up front. Okay, number 5 hand in 1-3-5-7-9. As you can see, look at how many hands so far has the word or. That's why there's so many options this year in the odds category. All right, we already made that hand, so I'm going to skip over it. Just remember that you can also, if you have the higher numbers on the odds scale, make it with 5-7, 7-9. And just play between that number 5 hand and number 2 hand if you cannot secure those pairs. Number 6 hand in 1-3-5-7-9. Well, here we go with a Kong of flowers again. 1, 3, and then we have 5s in 2 different suits. And please read the verbiage. These numbers only. And I believe the reason why the league is pointing that out is because they don't want you to think that you could use 1s or 3s or 5s for these pungs. You have to use 5s. So what is our 3rd suit? Bams. So there you go. We've got 3 different suits, cracks, dots, and bams with our 4 flowers. All right. You can make this hand in 5-7-9-9 also, but I'm just going to do one example. Okay. So here's the 1-3-5-5. Must be 5s in the opposite 2 suits. These must be pairs of 1s and 3s. Right. Jokers, 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 as many as you like. Number 7, 30-cent hand. You probably all know by now why. It's got 3 pairs. We do not need flowers for this hand. We do need a 3, 5, and 7. Okay, and then all in 1 suit, we have to have 1s and 9s. So let's use dots. How does that sound? Because I see them off to my side here. I see there's Here's another 9. And where are my 1 dots? Well, they're not so quick to find, so guess what? I'm going to use 3 jokers, which I'm allowed to do, as many as I want. Okay. What's important about this hand? The 1s and the 9s match in the same color. Must be the same suit. 3, 5s, and 7s can be in any other suit. So these could be BAMs, or these could be cracks, like I have, because these are dots. So your only choices would be BAMs and cracks for the pairs. Okay. Again, you know, the 3 pairs are sandwiched between the 2 Kongs, and that's why it's a 30-cent hand. Make sure those 1s and 9s match, and these match in the same suit, the second suit. If you have a hard time securing those pairs, you may want to consider switching to this hand up here, the 2B hand, because you're already going to have some 5, 7s and some 9s in another suit. So what you could do is 5, 7, if you happen to pull a 7 dot and you've got a bunch of jokers, switch to that hand. Okay? Again, I don't expect you to remember all of this information that I'm dispersing to you, and that's why I do recommend that you email me for a copy of my notes. Lynn Kaplan, that's LYNN KAPLAN 38 @gmail.com. Okay? All right, I believe that we are on the 3rd hand in 13579, which requires, let's put those off there, pair of flowers. We can make this hand in 135 or 579, any 3 suits. Okay? I'm not sure I'm even going to bother making that. That's a pretty easy hand to make. And if you have a flower after the Charleston in 5, 7s, and 9s or 1, 3, 5s, that is a great hand to play. Okay. Alrighty, let's go to hand number 4. In the 13579 category. Again, not even going to bother putting it together. These are what you need to remember about these hands. It's 1 suit with matching dragons. Those numbers only, 1 through 5, 5 through 7. Know your matching dragons. Very, very, very important. It's a 30-cent hand because of those 3 pairs. You've got the flowers, the dragons, and then you've got the middle number. Your broken record is going to tell you, again, try to have the majority of the tiles for those pairs up front. Okay. 5th hand in 13579. All right. So you can either do this 1335 or 5779. I believe that's the hand that we already put together, so I'm skipping that one. Oh, as a matter of fact, I think I have been repeating myself here on some of these hands. Oh well, just reinforcement. Let's go to that concealed hand in 13579. That concealed hand is in 2 suits, which we know, and it has to be those numbers. So you have to have 1, 1, you have to have 3, 5, 5, 5, and then in a second suit, you need the 5s, the 7s, and the 9s. This is a concealed hand. And what does that tell you? A concealed hand. Higher level of difficulty, right? You can't call anything. So 1, 3, 5, 5, 7, 9. Again, This is what I call a pung power hand. You've got 4 pungs, 1, 2, 3, 4. But remember on a concealed hand that you cannot call a tile unless it's your final mahjong tile. You know, if you're having a difficult time in securing those single tiles, definitely consider switching to a different hand in the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 category. I mean, there's so many options this year. Time to move on to our Winds and Dragons. Okay. Some interesting hands this year in the Winds and Dragons. Okie dokie. Just want to make sure that you all can see properly. Okay. First hand. Very, very interesting. Okay. The reason why this is interesting is you have 2 patterns to choose from. You've got Kong, Pung, Pung, Kong, or Pung, Kong, Kong, Pung. So during the Charleston, if you end up with a lot of the winds, and you know how sometimes the winds go around, hold on to them and consider making this hand. Be sure that when you call for an exposure, that you expose the correct number of tiles for the meld, depending on which hand you decide to play. In other words, if you display 4 Norse and 4 East, well, you can forget about playing that first hand there, because it's 3 East. So when you call for an exposure, be very, very careful. Just take your time when making your exposure. Right? Let's put together this number 2 hand in Winds and Dragons. You can make this hand in either pungs of North and South or East and West with any run, meaning any 3 consecutive numbers. All right, so let's just do the first one. We're going to have 3 Norse, which I love because even if you just have 2 Norse in your hand and someone drops one immediately, guess what? You can call it. Like I said, you know how those winds go around at the end of the Charleston. So since I have 5, 6, 7 in front of me, 1 suit, 5, 6. Now what's interesting with this hand, and I want you to be careful, maybe some people think, oh, I got pair, pair, maybe the next would be a pung. No, it's a Kong of your 3rd number, okay? So this is what it looks like. I've got my pungs of North and South, pair of 5s, pair of 6s, Kongs of 7s. I can do this in any of the suits and any 3 consecutive numbers. I can also do it in East and West. No, you cannot have North and East. No, you cannot have South and West. Okay? Jokers, jokers, jokers galore. As many as you want. Okay? So interesting patterns here. So just be sure when you call for an exposure that you expose the correct number of tiles. That's going to be the key in that particular hand. Now, in this particular hand, the second hand that we're working on right now, I think I've pretty much mentioned, you can start your run with any numbers 1 through 7. Okay, so this you could have 7, 8, 9. I'll remind you again about securing those pairs. Very, very important to try to have as much as those pairs as possible. If you have a difficult time securing those pairs, you might want to consider switching to another hand in this category. You may want to consider holding on to flowers and dragons, as there are hands in this category that require them, okay? Look at all the D's, all right? And look at the F's for the flowers. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I think there's quite a bit of flexibility in the wind and dragon category this year. And this is just a special note. If a player exposes a pung of any wind, okay, I'm going to give you this example right here. Let's say someone is playing this hand and they expose a pung of Norse and a Kong of sevens. This is the only hand that they can be playing on this year's card. So, what is the first thing that you're going to do? You're going to try to determine if by any chance, if there are 3 6s or 3 5s that have already been discarded, what does that tell you? There's no way that they're going to be able to make this hand because they need a natural pair, okay? So if you see that there are 3 5s, this is the example that I'm giving you with this hand, and 3 6s have been discarded, there's no way that they can make that hand because you cannot use a joker with a pair. So what would you do? You declare their hand dead. So please remember, if someone exposes a pung of a wind and a Kong of a certain number, the first thing you want to do is to figure out what the pairs are that they need, look in the middle of the table at the discarded tiles, and see if their hand is dead, okay? Playing defensively in Mahjong is very, very important, okay? All right, let's go to 3A and B. Again, in the wins, let's see how many options. I figured out 11 options we have in wins this year. So number 3, we have a Kong of Norse, a Kong of South, with any 2 dragons, okay? Or you can do it east-west with any 2 dragons. So you'd have your Kong of Norse, let's say, a Kong of South, and then you could have 3 whites, or you could have 3 reds, okay? Or you could have 3 greens, or you could have green and whites. Just make sure they don't match. That's the key to that hand. Okay? So it's any 2 dragons can be used as long as they don't match. They have to be different. Again, what I love about this hand is you've got a Kong, Kong, Pung, Pung pattern, meaning that anything can be called for an exposure. Pung, Pung, Kong, Kong. Many jokers as you want. So, and the reason why I mentioned that, for instance, if a player exposes the Kong of any wind and a Pung of any dragon, this is the only hand that they can be playing. You want to play defensively. So if someone has, let's say they've got the Norse up, right? And they've exposed a Pung of greens. That's the only hand they can be playing. Am I going to be concerned about throwing a South or a different type of dragon? You bet your bippy I am. You know, especially later on in the game. If it's early in the game, I'll take the risk and hope that they're not set for Mahjong. Okay. Let's go to number 4. Number 4, we need a pair of flowers. We need our Norse. And we need a 2023 in any suit. Remember, that soap is what I call neutered when it comes to, when it acts as a 0. Okay. And then I need my Souths. It has to be this combination or the East and West. Okay. North and South with 2023 or East and Westwood 2023. Remember, pair of flowers, no jokers. I'm going to remind you once again that with the 2023, you cannot call it for an exposure since it's single tiles. For that same reason, you cannot use a joker in this. I know I'm being redundant, but especially beginners have a tendency to, that it's a hard concept to grasp onto. Okay, so no jokers in this 2023 meld. Now, if you're playing this hand and all you need is one of these tiles to make a mahjong, someone throws, let's say, the 2 crack, mahjong, pick up the tile, put it on your rack, and expose the rest of your tiles. Okay. 5th hand in Winds and Dragons. I don't think I'm going to take the time to even put this together. What I will tell you, I find this to be a very, very interesting hand. You know, you have a Kong of flowers, a single north, a pair of east, a pung of west, and a Kong of south. It's kind of like a junk hand. They just threw everything into the bin. You know, obviously this would be a great hand to play after the Charleston if you've got some flowers and you've got some winds. Okay? If your hand happens to go dead because you cannot secure the 1 north or the pair of east, just consider another hand in this category. You know, you've got these hands up here, and you know, if you happen to pull some dragons, you could always consider that hand. So be flexible is my point. The number 7 hand, concealed, okay? Any consecutive numbers in any 2 suits. Let's go ahead and make this hand, okay? So we've got north, we've got our east and our west, we have our south, which is a pung meaning 3, okay, and then it says any 2 consecutive numbers. So how about, since we already have 2s and 3s up here, we do a pong of 2 cracks, and we do a pong of 3 cracks. Now, I just caught myself. It's 2 colors. Guess what? This has to be in a 2nd suit. I would, when someone goes mahjong on this hand, check the hand carefully and make sure that they used 2 separate suits, okay? This is a 30-cent hand. It's a concealed hand, okay? You know, usually the league puts all of the last hands in each category as concealed hands. So just remember, it's any 2 consecutive numbers in any 2 suits, right? And here we have again, pung, 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 pung. Powerful pung hands, right? But again, you do not want to call for any of those pungs because it's a concealed hand. Now, again, if someone throws your 14 tile that makes it your mahjong, then you declare mahjong on the 14th tile. Now, if your hand, if this particular hand happens to go dead because of that single east and that single west, consider switching up to this hand, number 1 in Winds and Dragons or number 2 in Winds and Dragons. Okay, so again, consider switching from number 7. I would probably look at the number 2 hand first because look, you've already got a consecutive run going in both hands, and it's any run. Okay, wow, we're getting through. Now we're to 3, 6, 9. 3, 6, 9. has to be these numbers. I think there is one hand down here where we can change the Kongs, but we'll make that in a moment. So 3, 6, 6, 9, 2 suits. And guess what? Again, our friendly pong kong, pong kong. So I'm grabbing what is close to me just to kind of simplify things. I think I've got some 3s here, and my 6s are here. Here's another 3. Here's another 6, 6. And let's be adventurous and make believe we got lots of jokers. Okay, so 3, 6, 6, 9. I always love this hand, super friendly, because again, it's pong kong, any 2 suits. Okay, easy peasy. Next hand, you can make this hand in 1 suit or 3 suits. Let's go ahead and make it in 3 suits. What do we need to start? We need some flower power, okay? I was a hippie from the late 60s, so, because I was born in 54. I wanted to go to Woodstock, but my parents were not on board with that at 14, so, but to this day, I am a huge fan of classic rock music. So, in our another flower power hand, let's determine. We've got our Kong of flowers, we've got our 3s and cracks, we've got our 6s and dots. What is our 3rd suit? Bams. Yep, I heard you from as far as California. There you go. All right, so 1 suit or 3 suit for this 3, 6, 9 hand. You know, you've got 3 Kongs in this hand, and you got that pair. What am I going to say again? Try to have that pair up front, since that is the difficult part of the hand. If your hand happens to go dead on the pair, switch to another hand in 3, 6, 9. We've got 8 options this year, so go for it. Okay. 3rd hand, number 3. We don't need any flowers. We need 3 suits, okay? So let's just move those 3s over. Let's find our 6 cracks. Here's 1. And I got my 6 crack radar up. There it is. So the first pair, those first 2 pairs have to be in the same suit. Then the 3s and 6s need to be in a 2nd suit. It's my 3 dots. And when I can't get my hands on them right away, I'll use a joker. Okay, cracks, dots, bams. Pair, pair, pong, pong, kong, in 3 separate suits. If you decide to play in this category, let me just mention this right now. You want to hold on to every 3, 6, and 9 tiles that you get during the Charleston. As I said before, you know, we have a lot of choices in this category this year, and I think it'll be pretty easy to switch hands. If you decide to play this hand, and you know, if I'm secure that I know for sure that I've secured the majority of the tiles in those 2 pairs, this is definitely the hand that I'm going to play. If I don't have those pairs, I'm not going to consider playing this hand, okay? So please keep that in mind. You would never want to play a pair with pairs unless you have the majority. And when I say majority, you know, like something like that would be awesome. At a minimum, I would want that. Would I ever play a hand with pairs, this many pairs, and not have any of it? Absolutely not. How many times have we gone, our hand has gone dead because we can't get those elusive pairs? So you just want to be careful on that. All right, let's go to the number 4 hand. Oh, a 30-cent hand, and more dragons. Let's go ahead and put this hand together. Okay, we're going to have a pair of flowers. I'm going to stick with my 3s and 6s and 9s in cracks. Okay, now 3 suits. What does that tell us? That tells us we cannot use the red dragon because the red dragon is what matches our cracks. So we are going to need the green dragon and the white dragons. Okay? And I believe those are pungs, correct. Now, if someone plays this hand and they call mahjong and they have red dragons here, what are you going to do? You're going to declare their hand dead. Okay? Very simple. Again, it's a 30-cent hand because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs. Okay? If you happen to expose the 2 pungs of dragons, okay, the backup hands that you could use are number 3 in 2023. Look, there's a pair of pung dragons. Okay. You could look at the number 3 hand up here in Winds and Dragons that we recently talked about. And again, well, this is the number 4 hand in 369 that we just put together. So those are the hands that have pungs of dragons. I just like to point that out. Especially if someone exposes pungs of dragons, you want to try and figure out what hand they're playing. So 2 different dragons from what your suited tiles are here. Okay. Let's go to the next hand. Now this is a hand like I was just talking about where we can shake things up a little bit. And what do I mean by that? Look at what it reads. Kongs of 3s, 6s, or 9s. So the example shows kongs of 3s. I want to show you a different example. So what am I going to do? I am going to use 6s, okay? I am going to use 6s. Now remember, the most important thing is your kongs have to match in the same number, either 3s, 6s, or 9s. So again, 3 suits, how do we know? 3 different colors. These kongs can be 3s, 6s, or 9s. If someone is playing this hand and they expose, they declare mahjong, and they expose and they've got a kong of 3s and a kong of 6s, or maybe 6s and 9s, what are you going to do? Declare their hand dead. Okay? Now, again, in this particular hand, you want to try to secure that single tile and that pair of 6s up front, since that's going to be the most difficult part of this hand to make. All right. Let's go to this next hand. I like this hand. All right. Let's see. We need 3s and 9s, so we're just going to switch this out here. I'm going to call this the path of least resistance with these mahjong tiles today. And there's another 9 crack. Okay, now let's use 6 bams in the middle. What is our dragon going to have to be? The green dragon, because the 6s and the Ds match in the same color. Okay, so that's the important thing about this hand. The 6s and the dragons must match. The 3s and the 9s have to match. And again, it has to be those numbers. Okay, I believe that's all I had to say on this hand, other than the fact that this is a pung Kong, pung. Say that 3 times real fast. So very, very nice. All callable, as many jokers as you want. You could have 3 jokers here for those dragons if you wanted to. I like this hand. I think I'll be playing this hand quite a bit this year. All right, last hand in 369. It's our concealed hand. Let's go ahead and put this together. We'll just go ahead again and keep it simple. Here's my 6. 2 colors equals what? 2 suits. So we're going to have we're just going to use cracks, and we're going to use, let me see if I can find 1 3 dot. I think that's my like elusive tile today for some reason. It keeps disappearing on me. Maybe Elijah came early for Passover tonight and he took it. Happy Pesach to everyone who celebrates, and happy Easter to everyone early who celebrates. Okay, so here we are. Last hand in 369 category. Again, concealed hand. What do we have again? 4 pungs. Okay. Again, broken record time, concealed hand. You cannot call for any of those pungs. Right? The only time you can call in this hand is if someone drops your 14th tile, and you can call it for mahjong, you know? Or of course, if you pick your tile, and then of course you make your own mahjong. But I would certainly try to have these single 6s at the start of the game, especially since this is a concealed hand. This hand again represents why during the Charleston, if you collect a lot of 3 6s and 9s, you have a lot of options in this entire category. Okay? Singles and pairs. Now, I know especially beginners are like, I'm not going to play singles and pairs. You know, they're too hard. And I agree. Up front, you know, it's the old adage, you got to crawl before you walk. I get that. However, when you get some experience under your belt, you definitely want to consider playing singles and pairs. Okay? And we're going to make each one of these, and I'm going to point something out to you when I make each of these singles and pairs. All right? What I do want to mention first with singles and pairs, and this is really, really important. There's a reason why these are all 50-cent hands, and one, the big hand, being 75 cents. They are all concealed hands, therefore you cannot call for any exposures. Also, since they are all singles and pairs, you cannot use any jokers. Please remember that the only tile that can be called is your final 14th mahjong tile. So that's why these hands have such a higher degree of difficulty. Okay, I just wanted to mention that right off the bat. So, don't need to worry about any jokers. Now, let's go ahead and make this first hand. We've got a 1, 2 pair of 1s, we've got a 3, a 5, and we have a 7 crack, and then we have 2 9 cracks. That was all in one color, 1 suit. Guess what? They want it again in a different suit. So, let's try to do it. Let's see if we're illustrious 1 bams are. Remember, our 1 bams are always the birds. 1 bam bird, okay? Some people say 1 damn bird, 1 bam bird, 1 birdie bam. It will always be a bird. I have played in some mahjong sets where it's an owl, where it's a peacock, where it's just any kind of bird, okay? So let's go ahead and make this hand. So we're doing it now in bams. So I need to find a 3 bam. Anybody help me? Thank you. There it was. So here we have all pairs and all singles, right? Pair of 1s, 3, 5, 7, pair of 9s. pair of 1s, 3, 5, 7, 9, 9 in a second suit. Right. So again, this is in the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, using the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 tiles. If you start pulling jokers, what are you going to do? You are going to take your little eyes and you're going to look in the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 category, and depending on what tiles that you already have, switch to the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 category. Again, especially since this year we have so many options. Right? Second hand in singles and pairs. Right? Any 3 suits, any 2 consecutive numbers. Any 2 consecutive numbers. I'm not going to use 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 because I want you to have a better understanding. So we're going to use 5, 6, 5, 6, and 5, 6. Hello, where's my other? We got 5, 6, 5, 6. I need one more 5, bam, there we go. There's that hand. 3 different suits, any 2 consecutive numbers. Okay? Now, what I like about this hand is that if you are playing this hand, I want you to look at the number 6 hand over in consecutive run. You already have the start of consecutive numbers. So if you start pulling jokers, just switch to that number 6 hand over in consecutive run and start filling in the missing pieces. Let's do the third hand in singles and pairs. Now we're with 3, 6, 9. So let's just go ahead and keep those 6s up there. I think it'll make it easier for me. We don't need flowers. We need a pair of 3s, a pair of 6s, a pair of 9s, 1 matching dragon. Find that so interesting this year. And then we're going to do the next in dots, 3s, 6s, and 9s in a second suit. And what's missing? Our matching dragon. That's what the D stands for. So we've got 3, 6, 9, matching dragon, 3, 6, 9, matching dragon. Has to be those numbers, okay? Has to be those numbers. Now, again, this is another great example of why you want to hold on to some dragons during the Charleston, all right? You know, always keep in mind, you may not need them for your hand, but one of your opponents may require them for their hand. Now, for backup opportunities, you know, depending on what tiles come in, I would consider number 3, number 4, and number 7 in the 3, 6, 9 category, okay? Remember, there's always a corresponding category for all these singles and pair hands if you start pulling jokers. That's really key to remember, okay? And, you know, you want to find an exposed hand that has pungs, kongs, or quints, because if you move out of the singles and pair category and you play an exposed hand, you're now in a position to call for an exposure. So remember to be flexible, okay? That's why singles and pairs should not be too intimidating, because you have other options when you start pulling in jokers, all right? So the number 4 hand in singles and pairs have to do with even numbers in 2 different suits. So let's see what suits I have on hand here. I've got a 2, and I need a pair of 6s, and I need a 4 crack, and then I need a pair of 8 cracks. There we go. Okay, so we completed the first part. in one suit. Now we need any second suit. Let's do BAMs. 2, I see a 6, I see my 8s. We need another 6, and what's missing? The 4 BAM. Okay? There we go. 2, 4, 6, 8 in 2 separate suits. I like it. Now, if you start pulling jokers, I would switch to a hand in the 2, 4, 6, 8 category over here. So needless to say, during the Charleston, if you decide to play even numbers, be sure to hold on to as many 2, 4, 6, and 8 tiles as possible, because it's going to give you a lot more flexibility in changing hands. Okay? So again, since you're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8 tiles, just switch to the 2, 4, 6, 8 category. Okay. Next hand, singles and pairs. Any 7 consecutive numbers, okay? Any 7 consecutive numbers. That means you can start your run at either 1, 2, or 3. Because if you start at 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's the highest you go, okay? I'm not even going to bother putting that hand together. All I'm going to say to you is this. If you start pulling jokers, switch to a hand that is most suitable in the consecutive run category. We have a lot of options in consecutive run this year. The hands that look most appealing to me to change to in that category would be one of the hands here, depending on what numbers you have, or the number 2 hand. Remember, because you're going to have that hand, the 1 through 7 in any consecutive, it's one suit. So you could even change to one of these hands, okay? You could also change to the number 5 hand, because look, you can make that hand in all the same suited tiles. So it's important to be flexible when playing Mahjong and thinking about what backup hands you can use. So again, I'm not going to take the time to put this together, but it's any one suit, any 7 consecutive numbers. And I've mentioned if you start pulling jokers, switch to the consecutive run category. Now we're on the very, very last hand, and this is what every avid Mahjong player, this is the mother lode, this is the big kahuna, this is the big hand of Mahjong. It's the 2023 in every suit. Now, you're probably going to ask, Lynn, what are the chances? Well, this is how I answer that. If during the Charleston, first of all, I don't have any jokers. So when I don't start with any jokers, I am looking in singles and pairs, okay? And the first thing I want is I gotta open with at least 2 soaps, because I know I need 3 out of the 4 soaps, right? So that's number 1. Then I look at my other tiles. Do I have tiles, my 2 and 3 tiles? That is when I decide to go for the big hand. If during the Charleston, I've got at least 2 soaps, I've got some 2s, and I've got some 3s, okay? You know, that's why it's got a 75-cent value, because 3 soaps are required, 6 2s are required, and 3 3s in all 3 suits. So this is a really important point if you play this big hand. You really need to pay attention to discarded tiles, because your hand can go dead so easily. If that happens, and especially if you have pulled some jokers, I would switch to either the number 1 or the number 2 hand in the 2023 category, okay? Well, we have just completed the card. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to read through my notes, and then that will be it for 2023. I want you to know that there are a total of 70 different hands that appear on this year's card. I think that's like 4 more than last year. There are no hands this year requiring a pung or quint of flowers. You will only see pairs and kongs of flowers in various hands. If a player makes an exposure with a pung or quint of flowers, be sure to declare their hand dead. Remember to hold on to flowers in the Charleston until you know that you don't need them for your hand. There is a fine line as to when to discard a flower. I hold on to them at the beginning of the game in hopes that someone will call for an exposure with flowers and a joker or two. But you have to be very, very careful if you hold on to a flower for too long in the game. It could be someone's mahjong tile by the time you discard it. I suggest you watch for exposures being made and discard it before the chances increase that someone is sitting and waiting to maj, since so many hands require flowers. This is another big year for flowers since there are 31 hands. That's 44% of the hands on the card that call for 2 or more flowers. So please keep that in mind. That's almost half of all the hands on the card require flowers. And of course, as I've mentioned before, passing flowers during the Charleston would be your last resort in selecting a tile to pass. There are 2 hands, number 2 in any like numbers, and number 3 in singles and pairs that require single dragon tiles. Like I said, I think that's the first time I've ever seen that. I like it when the league shakes things up a little bit. There are 5 hands requiring 2023. I'm going to point them out to you right now, okay? The 5 hands that require the meld of 2023, and please remember, 2023, no jokers. No jokers, okay? The number 2 hand in 2023, the number 3 hand in 2023, the number 4 A and B hands in winds and dragons, okay? I call it 4A and 4B. And then the number 6 hand, of course, our big hand down in singles and pairs. Okay. Speaking of dragons, it's interesting to note on this year's card that none of the hands have any dragons that specifically designate R for red dragon, or G for green dragon, or WH for white dragon, aka soap. I believe that will give you a bit more flexibility in deciding what dragons to use for specific hands. But again, I reiterate, know your matching dragons. Okay? There are 5 exposed hands that require 1 or more pungs of dragons. Number 3 in the 2023 category, 3A and B in the winds and dragons category, number 4 in 369, number 6 in 369. Okay, so that's 5 hands that require a pung of dragons. Now, why is that important? When someone makes a second exposure that includes a pung of dragons, always try to determine what hand your opponent could be playing. So hopefully you can narrow it down depending on what their second exposure is. As I have mentioned numerous times today, the popular pattern this year is pung kong, or to shorten that, you could say 3-4, 3-4, meaning 3 tiles, 4 tiles, 3 tiles, 4 tiles. Always remember, they have to be matching, okay? It's 3 like tiles for a pung, 4 like tiles for a kong. a quint, of course, then you have 5 like tiles that would require you to use a joker or jokers. So let's go over the pung kong hands, because number one, that needs to be your new mantra, and because I consider these to be the easiest hands on this year's card. So let's go through them. Number 1 in the 2023, pung kong. Number 3 in the 2-4-6-8, pung kong. Number 2 in consecutive run, pung kong. Number 6 in consecutive run. Number 2 in 1-3-5-7-9 is pung kong. And lastly, number 1 in 3-6-9. Again, these are going to be easiest hands to play because you can call for everything and use as many jokers as you want, right? The 10 hands requiring a Kong of flowers are as follows. The number 3 hand in 2023. I need to just take a sip of water. Give me a moment. The number 1 hand in 2-4-6-8. The number 1 hand in any like numbers. Number 3 hand in quints. Number 7 in consecutive run. In the 1-3-5-7-9 category, line 6, both of those hands require Kong of flowers. Number 5 in winds and dragons. And lastly, on the second line in 3-6-9, both of those hands require Kongs of flowers. Again, if someone exposes a Kong of flowers and they make a second exposure, what we try to do is narrow down what hand they're playing. Okay. There are 7 concealed hands on this year's card and appear in the last row of each respective category, with the exception of addition hands and quint hands. No concealed hands in those 2 categories this year. Now, furthermore, again, I want to mention the singles and pair hands are always concealed. The one concealed hand that I think is going to catch everyone off guard this year is the second hand in any like numbers. Highlight it, do whatever you need to do to really bring it to your attention. And I just mentioned again, if someone declares Mahjong on that hand and they have exposed any pungs of those numbers, you need to declare their hand dead. Right? Be sure to check the hand carefully on the new hand to be sure that it is an X for exposed before you call a tile for an exposure. You know, obviously we're working with a new card. The combination of our melds have changed. You know, there are some players, they have last year's card memorized because they play so much. So be careful before you call for a tile. Make sure the hand is an exposed hand and not concealed. Okay. Also, be sure to look at the hand carefully before claiming a discard, because remember, once you touch a tile on the table, it's yours. You can't go, oh, never mind, I don't want that tile. That tile is yours. And again, since the patterns have changed, you want to be certain that you are exposing the correct number of tiles for that particular meld. So in other words, let's say you're playing that first hand in 2023, okay? And you have 2 soaps in your rack, okay? And no jokers, and someone throws a white, okay? And you go call, and you touch that white, and then you go, oh, never mind, too late. You actually have to call that tile and make an exposure. And then what you would have to do is find another hand on the card that had an exposure or had had a meld of 3 soaps in it. So be very careful when you're playing on the new card before you call for a discard and claim it by touching it, that you have the correct number of tiles to expose for your particular meld. Okay? When another player declares Mahjong, it's extremely important that you verify that it is in fact an accurate Mahjong. When we play on a new card, mistakes are common because we are accustomed to playing on the old card. Before you toss in your tiles, be sure to check that your opponents have in fact made a valid Mahjong. If you are playing a hand that requires a single or a pair, be sure to watch the tiles that are discarded. If you discover that your tiles have already been discarded and you will be unable to complete the single or pair required, try to switch to another hand. If that is not possible, simply play defensively. Remember that the safest tile to discard in Mahjong is a joker. No one can call a joker. So what I'm saying to you is when you know that you cannot make your Mahjong, and maybe there's not enough tiles left in the wall that you could even attempt to try to switch hands, and you have jokers in your hand, discard the joker. Very, very important. Now, if you start out with no jokers, please be sure to look at the singles and pairs hands. Remember, like I just went over, that each category on the card has a corresponding singles and pair hand. If you start to get jokers, then switch to another section of the card, just like I had pointed out. You know, if you're playing that first hand with the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9s, and you start pulling jokers, or if your hand goes dead on one of the singles or pairs, switch over to the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 category. Okay? All right. Due to the 2023 category this year, what I'm going to talk about now are what are considered hot tiles. All right. So, because of the 2023 category, look at the numbers. Our year tiles are the 2s and the 3s. They'll be on the most wanted list in addition to the soaps, because soaps are required in every single one of those hands. You want to remember that the year tiles and the dragons, especially the soaps, and flowers are considered hot commodities. You want to try not to pass those tiles during the Charleston. Sometimes we can't help it, so you do. Once the game starts and you realize that you do not need these hot tiles, you want to discard them as soon as possible. You don't want to hold on to them because your opponents are building their hands as the game goes on, and those hot tiles become even more hotter or dangerous to discard. Excuse me. If you are playing Quint number 2, okay, that requires a pair of 2s, before I make the exposure of the Quint of 5s, remember it's those numbers only, I would be certain that I had my pair of 2s. Reason being, let's say you expose that Quint of 5, and then you realize that at least 3 of the 2s in your suit have been discarded. You know that your hand is dead, and there's no other hand that you could be playing other than you could switch to this Quint number 1 or the Quint number 2, but it's going to be difficult because this is all in the same suit and these require different suits. So be very, very careful. If you are playing that second hand in Quints, you don't want to go dead on that hand because of that pair of 2s. This is also a good time for me to mention that you never, in capital letters, bold, underlined, italic, you never call yourself dead. You want to stay in the game and simply play defensively. By staying in the game, you are giving your opponents less of a chance of picking their mahjong tiles. Remember, by you staying in the game, you're still picking tiles. So at best, you're hoping for a wall game, and this way it doesn't cost you any money. So never call yourself dead. So some of my final notes are, I've had an opportunity to play on the new card, and my first impression is that it's challenging, as are all new cards, but it has many new exciting changes. My personal recommendation for learning the new card is to play, play, play. I recommend that you play online at several different sites. Now, my favorite is called realmahjong.com. You can purchase a membership and play unlimited games for a year. So that's my personal choice. You can play on the nationalmahjongleague.org website, www.nmjl.org, mahjongtime.com. There is www.myjongg.net. That's another popular one, and mahjongmentor.com. Again, if you request my notes, you will have all of this in writing. I also recommend that you make each hand on the card by physically building each hand with tiles from your mahjong set. That's exactly what I just did, okay? And that's another reason why, especially for the YouTube video, if you have a copy of my notes, it will really help you better understand each of the hands that I actually put together and the various options available to you. So, I hope so much that this evaluation of the 2023 card proves to be helpful. New cards can be intimidating at first, but just be patient. It does take time and practice to feel comfortable playing the new hands, but I promise you that each time you play, it will get better. I'm going to remind you once again that you can email me at Lynn Kaplan 38, that's Lynn Kaplan, Kaplan 38 @gmail.com. To request a copy of my written notes. And even after you review my notes or watch the video, if you ever have any questions, I'm always happy to address them. So enjoy, have fun, and as always, I hope that your life is filled with love and your mahjong hands are filled with jokers. Warmest regards, Lynn.